We want to acknowledge and pay respect to the past, present and future traditional custodians and elders of the various countries of this nation, and the continuation of cultural, spiritual, educational practices of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, which we are reminded of in the Uluru Statement of the Heart. Thank you.
Now we'll have Ira.
Go. He's going to play a music.
Yeah.
First.
Sorry.
He can't hear you.
All right.
You can't hear anything, right?
No, Shiva.
I could hear a bit of piano at the beginning. Did you play it and stop it?
If anybody can sing, they can sing the prayer.
That song.
No.
I could try.
You can. Can you?
Ah.
Okay.
Colin, you happy to start, Colin? Colin.
Yeah.
There.
O thou kind Lord, these are thy servants who have gathered in this meeting, have turned unto thy kingdom, and are in need of thy bestowal and blessing. O thou God, manifest and make evident the signs of thy oneness, which have been deposited in all the realities of life. Reveal and unfold the virtues which thou hast made latent and concealed in these human realities. O God, we are as plants, and thy bounty is as the rain. Refresh and cause these plants to grow through thy bestowal. We are thy servants, free us from the fetters of material existence. We are ignorant, make us wise. We are dead, make us alive. We are material, endow us with spirit. We are deprived, make us the intimates of thy mysteries. We are needy, enrich and bless us from thy boundless treasury. O God, resuscitate us, give us sight, give us hearing. Familiarize us with the mysteries of life, so that the secrets of thy kingdom may become revealed to us in this world of existence, and we may confess thy oneness. Every bestowal emanates from thee, every benediction is thine. Thou art mighty, thou art powerful, thou art the giver, and thou art the ever bounteous.
When the heaven is shut up and there is no rain, because they have sinned against thee, yet if they pray to thy place and confess thy name and turn from their sin, when thou dost afflict them, then hear thou from heaven and forgive the sin of thy servants and of thy people Israel, when thou hast taught them the good way, wherein they should walk, and send rain upon thy land, which thou hast given unto thy people for an inheritance. It's from the Bible, King's Bible, King James Version, 2 Chronicles. The wise find peace on hearing the truth, like a deep, clear, undisturbed lake. The good renounce everything. The pure don't babble about sensual desires. Whether touched by pleasure or pain, the wise show no change of temper. If a man does not seek children, wealth, or power, either for himself or for someone else, if he does not seek his own advantage by unprincipled means, he is a virtuous man, a wise man, and a righteous man. Buddhist Dhammapada.
O my friend, quench ye the lamp of error, and kindle within your heart the everlasting touch of divine guidance. For ere long the asayas of mankind shall, in the holy presence of the adored, accept not but the purest virtue and deeds of stainless holiness. The high faith. True reliance is for the servant to pursue his profession and calling in this world, and hold fast unto the Lord, to seek not but his grace, inasmuch as in his hands is the destiny of all his servants. The essence of detachment is for a man to turn his face towards the court of the Lord, to enter his presence, behold his countenance, and stand as witness before him. The essence of understanding is to testify to one's poverty and submit to the will of the Lord, the sovereign, the gracious, the all-powerful.
Whosoever committeth sin transgresseth also the law. For sin is the transgression of the law. And ye know that he was manifested to take away our sins, and in him is no sin. Whosoever abideth in him sinneth not. Whosoever sinneth hath not seen him, neither known him. Little children, let no man deceive you. He that doeth righteousness is righteous, even as he is righteous. He that committeth sin is of the devil, or the devil sinneth from the beginning. For this purpose the Son of God was manifested, that he might destroy the works of the evil. Whosoever is born of God doth not commit sin, for his seed remaineth in him, and he cannot sin, because he is born of God. The essence of faith is fewness of words and abundance of deeds. He whose words exceed his deeds, know verily his death is better than his life. The essence of true safety is to observe silence, to look at the end of things and to renounce the world. The beginning of magnanimity is when man expendeth his wealth on himself, on his family, and on the poor among his brethren in his faith. The essence of wealth is love for me. Whoso loveth me is the possessor of all things, and he that loveth me not is indeed of the poor and needy. This is that which is the finger of God, and splendor hath revealed. The source of all evil is for man to turn away from his Lord and set his heart on things ungodly.
Finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are noble, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are good, of good report. If there is any virtue and if there is anything praiseworthy, meditate on these things. Christianity Philippians 4 chapter 8. The source of all learning is the knowledge of God. Exalted be his glory, and this cannot be attained save through the knowledge of his divine manifestation. The essence of abasement is to pass out from under the shadow of the merciful and seek the shelter of the evil one. The source of error is to disbelieve in the one true God, rely upon aught else but him, and flee from his decrees. The true loss is for him whose days have been spent in utter ignorance of his self. Baha'i faith.
But after thy hardship, an impenitent heart pressures up unto thyself wrath against the day of wrath and revelation of the righteous judgment of God, who will render to every man according to his deeds. To them who by patience, continence, in well-being seek to glory and honor and immortality, eternal life, but unto them that are contentious and do not obey the truth, but obey unrighteousness, indignations and wrath, tribulation and august, upon every soul of man that doeth evil, the Jew first, and also of the Gentiles, but glory, honor, and peace to every man that worketh good, to the Jew first, and also to the Gentile, for there is no respect of persons with God. If a man sins against his neighbor, and an oath be executed, an act of him to cause him to swear, and he come and swear before the altar in his house, then hear thou from heaven, and do and judge thy servants, requiting the wicked to bring his way upon his own head, and justifying the righteous to give him according to his righteousness. Cursing, find full reward of doing right in right. Let right deed be the motive, not the fruit which comes from them. And live in action, labor, make them acts, thy pity, casting all self aside. Hindu Bhagavad Gita.
There is right action, that which being enjoined, is wrought without attachment, passionlessly, for duty, not for love, nor hate, nor gain. There is vain action, that which men pursue, aching to satisfy desires, impelled by sense of self, with all absorbing thirst. This is of Raja, passionate and vain. There is dark action, when one doth a thing, heedless of issues, heedless of the hurt, or wrong for others, heedless if he harm his own soul. These of tamas, black and bad. Hindu. The perfume of flowers blows not against the wind, nor does the fragrance of sandalwood, fagara, and jasmine, but the fragrance of the virtuous blows against the wind. The virtuous man pervades every direction. Buddhism.
All men are responsible for one another. Judaism. And verily, amongst them is a sect who twist their tongues concerning the book, that ye may reckon to be from the book, but it is not from the book. They say it is from God, but it is not from God, and they tell a lie against God. Then while they know it is not right for a man that God should give him a book and judgment and prophecy, and that then he should say to man, be ye servants of mine rather than of God. But be ye rather masters of teaching the book and of what ye learn. The Quran. The best of men are those who are useful to others. Islam. The essence of all that we have revealed for thee is justice, is for man to be free himself from idle fancy and imitation, and discern with the eye of oneness his glorious handiwork, and look into all things with a searching eye. Thus have we instructed thee, manifested unto thee words of wisdom, that thou mayest be thankful unto the Lord, thy God, and glory therein amongst all peoples, the high faith.
O God, my God, cast upon these gatherings the glances of thy loving kindness. Keep safe each and all in thy custody and under thy protection. Send down upon these souls thy heavenly blessings. Immerse them in the ocean of thy mercy and quicken them through the breaths of thy Holy Spirit. Thou art the powerful, the omnipotent, the merciful, and thou art the generous, the beneficent, the Lord of grace abounding. Baha'u'llah, Abdul Baha.
Muted. Marina, you are muted. Marina, you are muted.
Sorry, Siva, are you able to get the music back
Uh,
or not? I mean, I don't know how these things work either.
Let me see. Maybe I think we go ahead with the talk. Yes.
Not working.
Unless we can ask Beta to chant a prayer, and Ravi to chant a Hindu prayer. Beta, can you chant, because our music didn't work? Can you?
Yeah, sure, no problem. Yep, okay.
Thanks, Vita.
That's okay. والا ای مهربان بهای من، تو تایید کن، تو توفیق بخش، ما افسرده ایم، تو دریای آتش، ما پژمرده ایم، تو نسایم روح بخش، نسیم عنایتی و شمیم محبتی برسان. عبدالبها عباس.
And Ravi, are you okay to?
Ravi, if you can use ஒரு தேவாரம் ஒன்று பாடுவீங்களா?
Okay. சிற்றம்பலம். குற்றாயின வாருவிலக்ககளீர் கொடுமை பல செய்தன நானறியேன், ஏற்றாயடிக்கே இரவும் பகலும் பிரியாது வணங்குவன் எப்பொழுதும், தொற்றாதென் வயிற்றினகம்படியே குடரோடு தொடக்கி முடக்கியிட ஆற்றேனடியேன் அதிகை கடில விரட்டான துறை அம்மானே. திருச்சிற்றம்பலம்.
Thank you. Is anyone else who can chant or sing devotional songs? Yung?
Can I please ask a question?
Not now. Can you sing a prayer or devotional song, or anyone else? Asim?
Can I sing a French song?
Is it a devotional character? Yes.
That's for the children.
Yes, please.
Dans le jardin de mon père. Oh, okay. The music. Dans le jardin de mon père, les lilas sont fleuris, tous les oiseaux du monde viennent faire la nuit. Auprès de ma blonde qui fait bon, fait bon, fait bon. Auprès de ma blonde qui fait bon dormir. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
You know why the music didn't play? This is the revolution, that now we can use our own
voices.
So please, time, come and sing these things. Thank you. So please continue.
Thank you. Okay, so we are very happy today to today's speaker, Sana Vasli, who is much younger than most of us. And Sana has a very young family and has been a Baha'i community from his childhood. And Sana, I was told that Sana and Siva's son have been sort of friends. So Sana knows Siva from his childhood, it looks like.
Yes.
And Sana currently works in the banking industry in strategy and operations departments. We are very happy today, Sana, you are able to give us a talk on see good things in others with your busy schedule and working from home with your child. Thank you for that, Sana. And basically, I'm thinking seeing the good things in others is a simple but very powerful way to feel happier and more confident and become more loving and more productive in the world. But it's very hard to see the good things are in others when we don't want to. But it's a psychologically, I think it's very hard, but I'm sure Sana will lead us how to do that. Thank you, Sana, for your time.
Great, thank you so much. And yes, the balance was easy when my wife took over putting my daughter to sleep, which is usually my job, which is my favorite job to do. But she took over, which was much to my daughter's pleasure. She loves it when her mom gets to put her to sleep. So thank you so much. And it was so wonderful to be invited here. And because I've known Mr. Perry my whole life, I can't ever call him Siva. I always have to call him Mr. Perry because that's what I called him when I was 4 years old, I think, when I met him many years ago. So that's over 30 years ago. But yeah, that's so every time, no matter what, whenever his name comes up as Siva, I'm like, no, I have to call him Mr. Perry. So that can't change, no matter how old I get. But I will. I did, while I was asked to just put something together that was about unity, we will start with something about disunity and then it will get to unity at the end, I promise, we'll get there. And this isn't a speech or any type of formal presentation. Please feel free to, jump in and contribute and speak up and ask questions. I mean, and because, as all of you would probably know by now, as you've engaged in these sort of forums, that the Baha'i faith doesn't have any clergy or priests or anything like that. So what I've done is just pulled together some writings from the Baha'i writings, and you'll see the source of those writings at the bottom. So they'll be from either at any point the center of the faith at that time. So whether it's Baha'u'llah, Abdul Baha, Shoghi Effendi, or the Universal House of Justice. So that's just to give reference to where I found these quotes from. And so none of these ideas are mine in any way. It's just I thought to share that. But we'll get started. And the topic, this is the way I know that this is an important topic, is that according to the guardian of our faith, Shoghi Effendi, he said, on no subject are the Baha'i teachings more emphatic. On no subject. On all the things that we talk about, this one has the most emphasis towards it. So I know it must be an important topic. So I feel good that, okay, at least we're talking about something that's of high importance or high emphasis when it comes to Baha'i teachings. And one other part is that while, our behaviors and our actions will always be seen, through the eyes of God, is we don't judge each other, or even judging ourselves is very difficult because God will have his own assessment of us, in this world and in the next world. And so we don't really have a ranking of different sins. Like this one is the second worst one. This was the third worst one. However, we do know that there is one that is the worst. And the topic that we're going to talk about is considered from Abdul Baha as the most great sin. So what would be the most great sin? So we know all of them just fall after that one. So there's not a second, third, fourth, and fifth. It's just all of them on balance by what you do. But this one is the most great of all the sins. And it's also what Abdul Baha considered the worst human quality. So the most great sin and the worst human quality. And this is something that's most emphasized in the teachings of the faith. Can anyone guess what this is? What would be the most great sin?
The one who causes disunity? among people? Because your talk also is about that.
Yeah. So it does. This thing that is the most great sin or the worst human quality, it does cause disunity. Yep. What could it possibly be? Should we go and find out what Abdu'l-Baha says? Let's go have a look. Here's what Abdu'l-Baha says. He says the worst human quality and the most great sin is backbiting. More especially when it emanates from the tongues of the believers of God. If some means were devised so that the doors of backbiting were shut eternally, and each one of the believers unsealed his lips in praise of others, then the teachings of His Holiness Baha'u'llah would spread. The hearts be illumined, the spirits glorified, and the human world would attain to everlasting felicity. This is what Abdu'l-Baha says. So he says that backbiting is the most great sin and the worst human quality. So this is why I said we're going to start with disunity. I'm going to share the bad thing, and then I promise you that we'll get to the unity part at some point. But we're going to start with the bad one. So this is what, and so maybe before we go into why is it the most great sin, let's look at what is backbiting. Can anyone share like what backbiting is as a concept?
Young.
Being two-faced, gossiping, things like that.
Yeah, spot on. Exactly. Yeah. And for those who have done the first book of the Ruhi Institute, Reflections on the Life of the Spirit, that we explore backbiting in there as well. And I didn't take a Baha'i definition. I just thought, let's go to even the dictionary. This is not a exclusive Baha'i word. This is a word that exists, and it is saying mean or spiteful things about a person who's not present. And so that's probably the difference between that and just like bullying somebody or harassing somebody or verbal abuse. It's when they're not present. So this particular element of someone not being present, backbiting, is considered, again, the most great sin. So, actually, I think I'll get to that in a second. So one of the teachings of the Baha'i writings is that we actually don't have a right to backbite. We have no right. And the reason is because Baha'u'llah tells us in one of his hidden words, he says, "O son of man, breathe not the sins of others, so long as thou art thyself a sinner. Shouldst thou transgress his command, accursed wouldst thou be, and to this I bear witness." So we actually don't have any qualification or ability to backbite or to talk about other people's sins as long as we have sins. So once we abolish all of our sins, then we should all just start backbiting about each other. No, I'm just kidding. That's obviously not the message. We wouldn't even need to we wouldn't backbite, of course. But this is this great counsel that Baha'u'llah has provided us, that we actually, it's not even something that humans have a right to do, but it's something that happens quite a lot. So why is this such a big deal? Why is backbiting of all things? Why not violence or something, I don't know, very drastic? Why is this the most great sin? Why do we think?
Because the other person has no way to defend himself or herself, and to prove that they are right or wrong. So yeah, so the other person is actually helpless and doesn't know exactly what's happening around him behind the back.
It creates a disunity, and also the person who actually backbites, also he will be condemned to the I mean, God will punish him.
Also, it happens so easily, so casually, and therefore it's a subtle poison that goes through everything and all, sectors of society and offices and everything. It's like a poison we're breathing in and out, and we don't even know how bad it is.
This is such an important insight, is because of its frequency and its ease. It's not that it's so much that it's easy to backbite, it's almost hard not to backbite. You know, like think about our culture and society that drives backbiting, and that some friendships are built on backbiting, that they live together, that people like are friends based on the fact that they want to speak ill of other people, and that's how they beat themselves. And so all of these, you know, we have magazines that are built off the idea of gossip and backbiting. We have industries that flourish because of this thing. So it's actually something very pervasive, and the likelihood of its occurrence is quite high. But also there's an important point to why Baha'is particularly are very adverse to it. So this is a very broad statement, and it can't be answered in single words. But if we were to think, first word that came to our mind, what is the purpose of the Baha'i faith? What word comes to mind that all Baha'is would just say if we were like, suddenly someone came up and said, what's the purpose of the Baha'i faith? What would a Baha'i say?
Unity.
Yeah. And so if the very purpose of Baha'u'llah's revelation of why he lived a life of suffering, imprisonment for 40 years and exiled all the way across different parts of the Middle East, and he suffered greatly to reveal this message, it was to unite the world. This was his purpose. And backbiting does the very thing that unravels Baha'u'llah's revelation. How can Baha'u'llah's revelation achieve what it's achieved particularly if the Baha'is, God forbid, but if anybody was backbiting? And it does, and even if you think in very practical terms, if Mr. Perry and I were sitting there and we were talking about somebody who wasn't in this meeting, and we were like, oh, this person is so aggressive, or they're like this and that, and then that person enters the meeting and they're like, hi everyone, and we think, oh, that was a bit of an aggressive hello, wasn't it? Like we just suddenly have this new mask that we've created distance between us and this person without you even knowing who we're talking about. And we know that it's this poison, slow poison, as Tracy described. It's such a great way of describing it, because while on the surface you're like, oh, it doesn't feel very harmful, it's the thing that creates that begins disunity. And if you weren't even able to utter those things, imagine the implications. So let's talk about those implications. What is the impact that backbiting would have on a family? Like, what if I spoke to my daughter, I mean, she's 4, this would be a very odd thing to say, but imagine I said something about my wife and said, oh, your mother, she's always like this. She always does these things. And while, her mother wasn't around, what would be the impact on our family if I was to backbite?
In harming her relationship with her mother.
Yeah. Like imagine a family which feels unbreakable, but it does. Those things happen, and people do that. People will be like, oh, oh, your father, he's always like this and these things like that. You're like, oh, maybe my father is like that. And then people grow up with these challenges in life because they're like, a lack of trust and a lack of unity. And then it has this like big impact on someone's overall life. What about its impact on society? Just a broad impact on society of backbiting, of being able to get up on grandstand about other people or about other communities or other individuals. We can see the instant impact that it has of disunity. So we know that, so while on the surface being the worst human quality or the most great sin feels like a large statement to make, you can see that as that writing of Abdul Baha said, if you were to remove this, it would be blotted out eternally, we would see great felicity in the world. Because imagine that all these other great sins, like say something like murder as an example, that's obviously something quite extreme and not as easy to do as backbiting, but something like that, where does something like that start? If you roll back, where does this sort of hate, this drive start? Often the seed of some of these things is somebody getting off their chest and fault finding about another individual. And because backbiting in the Baha'i writings often is coupled with fault finding, so that these two concepts are often stuck together because they're very interrelated, is where we are prone to look for faults in others. And Baha'u'llah is challenging us to say, no, We want to look in the good of others, which we'll get to the unity part, I promise, because so far all of this has been disunity. And then let's talk about the impact on us as an individual. So if I start backbiting all the time, well, actually, Baha'u'llah addresses this in one of his writings, and he says that backbiting quencheth the light of the heart and extinguisheth the life of the soul. And, you know, like why, like if you think about, I mean, we don't have to go this for too long, but like a heart, why does it have a heart have a light that guides you, a light that attracts others? Like, you know, this light is important, has a purpose. Imagine if that light is quenched, that spiritual guidance is cut off, that attraction to others. You know, Baha'u'llah says that, you know, a kindly tongue is the lodestone of the hearts of men. So we know that a kindly tongue is what attracts people to, you know, that attracts hearts. But backbiting quencheth the light of the heart. And then the soul in itself has an eternal life. It lives forever, for those who believe in that. Well, I do, of course, as a Baha'i. But it lives forever. And that life, when we backbite, the life of that soul is extinguished. You know, so this has a very large implication on the individual who participates in backbiting. So before we go into all the positive things, I promised you we'll get there, that we'll get to something positive soon, okay? And if not, you can just kick me out of this Zoom meeting and someone takes over. But I thought let's go into some clarifying questions on what is and isn't backbiting, according to some of the Baha'i teachings. So is it still backbiting if what you are saying is true? So if I said, oh, that person, I don't know, is really rude, and it's actually true, they are rude, is it still backbiting?
Yes.
Let's find out. Yes, it is. Whew. Okay, correct answer. And Shoghi Effendi, the guardian of the faith, says, even if what is said against another person be true, the mentioning of his faults to others still comes under the category of backbiting and is forbidden. So it doesn't, and that's often a justification that people make. Someone's like, oh, Sana, you really should stop backbiting, or like, it's a bit harsh what you're saying. Yeah, but it's true. He is like that. And they're like, oh, you know, and people think that now it's okay because we all know that it's true and therefore it's okay for me to create disunity, but no, it's not. Well, that doesn't count. Can parents discuss the character of their children?
Yes.
Yeah, I think there's practical part to this as well. This, you know, this is not, unless someone is saying, oh, and they're being insulting or, you know, grossly rude about that child. But, you know, my wife Anissa and I, we sit down together and we consult a lot about our child's development and her. I mean, we're very lucky that she has a wonderful character, and we're the blindest parents in the world, so we only see her good qualities. But one day, if we saw her bad ones, it's okay. Like it's not about us trying to create this unity, saying, "Oh, don't hang out with our daughter Emma anymore." It's like, actually, ooh, you know, so she hasn't been sharing or she hasn't been doing this. Like, how do we address this as parents? Like, we have a responsibility as well to do that. So it's not some extreme thing that we're now suffocated that we can't speak about anything. Is it okay if we just listen to the backbiting, but we don't say anything? So if I'm backbiting to Mr. Perry, is it okay for him to just sit there and hear it out and hear what I have to say?
No.
No.
No. And what does the Guardian also speaks to this? He says, it is obvious that if we listen to, he says it's obvious. I put it in a question because I didn't know if it was obvious, but he believes it's obvious that if we listen to those who complain to us about the faults of others, we are guilty of complicity in their backbiting. We should therefore, as tactfully as possible, but yet firmly, do our utmost to prevent others from making accusations or complaints against others in our presence. So how do we do this? This is very difficult. So if somebody comes to us and they're like, look, I need to get this off my chest. This person is blah, 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 all of these things. How do we, in a way that doesn't, you know, hurt the heart of that person who maybe with all the right intentions are just trying to fix the problem, but have come to you and have engaged in fault finding and backbiting about another person? What could be some approaches? How could we do that?
One way is directly to tell that it is not good for you and good for everyone else. or change the topic, or I'm not interested in listening.
When the other person is not here, I guess.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's good if we have a very good intention. It's not backbiting, but you want to solve a problem, to bring him also. So let's talk together, like a consultation, but not behind his back. But it's very difficult when people are all talking and what do you? Yeah.
No, it's true. Yeah, it is quite challenging. I was going to share something, and then I realized, oh wait, this isn't my idea. It's coming up in the next few slides on how to do this. But there is some answers in that Abdul Baha gives us, but we'll get to those soon, I promise. But isn't it good to get issues just off your chest? Isn't it good just to, feel relieved that you can talk about what you want to talk about? Somebody actually asked this to the Universal House of Justice. Somebody wrote to them and said, I know that I can't backbite, but I find it very comforting to, with my close friend, to sit down and just share all of this. And the House of Justice very thoughtfully wrote back and said, normally it is possible to describe the situation surrounding a problem and seek help and advice in resolving it without necessarily mentioning names. The individual believer should seek to do this, whether he is consulting a friend, Baha'i or non-Baha'i, or whether the friend is consulting him. So maybe that's one way that if someone engages in something and you feel like, well, maybe they're trying to just express themselves, is to say, I want to help you. I really want to talk about this. But maybe if you just don't tell me who it's about, because I don't think that's important to me. It's the problem will be the same. That I'll need to, unless they say, oh, it's about my husband. And you're like, oh, okay. Well, you only have one husband, so that's going to be easy to figure out. But, I think there are ways that people can say, look, I'm having this personal challenge with an individual and I want to, and say, yeah, now we can talk about it, because there is no way that it can create disunity. But I can now help you. And so now as a friend, I don't have to walk away from you or make you feel alone as well, because some people don't know that this is the most great sin or the worst human quality. But then as Baha'is, or as people, as anyone who's trying to do what is good, well, what should we do with our enemies if we can't backbite about them? I'll tell you the answer, because maybe somebody might say do something violent. Just in case someone says that, I'll give you the right answer. Abdul Baha says, Baha'u'llah has clearly said in his tablets that if you have an enemy, consider him not as an enemy. Do not simply be long-suffering, nay, rather love him. Your treatment of him should be that which is becoming to lovers. Do not even say that he is your enemy. Do not see any enemies. Though he be your murderer, see no enemy. Look upon him with the eye of friendship. Be mindful that you do not consider him as an enemy, and simply tolerate him, for that is but stratagem and hypocrisy. I was reflecting on this, and while many of us know that there are countless stories of Abdul Baha who encountered people that you could characterize as an enemy, who they did such awful things to him, his friendship. I was reading the other day in a wonderful book about the life of Baha'u'llah. And during the 10 years that he was in Baghdad, he rented a home that was there. And a group of people who were, and this is before he'd revealed the Baha'i revelation, he was a Babi, and everyone saw him as the one that all the Babis came to for advice, and they saw him as this figurehead among the Babi community. And 100 people were plotting to storm his house, destroy everything in his house, and capture him. And so a group of the Babis came to Baha'u'llah's house, and they said, we will never let that happen to you. We're going to stand as a human wall in front of your house so that they will have to come through us to get to you. And Baha'u'llah said, why would you need to do that? These are not my enemies. These are my friends. And he said, leave my door open. Do not barricade the door. And he left his door open, and he invited, and those 100 people did come, and he made tea for each one of them. And he invited each one of them to his home, and he gave them tea, and they sat together, and he transformed hearts. There's a whole chapter in this book that I was reading called King of Glory, and it's called Friends friends and from foes to friends or something like that. And there were countless stories of just these 10 years in this city as he was there as an exile, of how many of these are people that were, you would definitely characterize as enemies. They were trying to attack him, that he turned to friends, and they became lifelong friends, and many of them followers when he revealed the Baha'i revelation a few years after that story. So, you know, that's an extreme story, and I don't think anyone has 100 people storming their house at the moment to capture them. And if you do, I'd advise you to get off this Zoom and run away as fast as you can. But that's, I mean, our situations are nowhere near as extreme and life-threatening as what Baha'u'llah encountered at that time. But his attitude was not, oh, I'll trick them, or anything. He said, no, they're not my. This concept of enemies didn't exist for Baha'u'llah. And he set that example for the rest of the Babi community, and therefore the Baha'i community followed. So I thought that was quite relevant. I only read this the other day, so it came to my mind. And Abdul Baha also says, if someone oppresses, injures, and wrongs another, and the wronged man retaliates, this is vengeance and is censurable. No, rather he must return good for evil. And not only forgive, but also, if possible, be of service to his oppressor. This conduct is worthy of man. For what advantage does he gain by vengeance? The two actions are equivalent. If one action is reprehensible, both are reprehensible. The only difference is that one committed first and the other later. And this doesn't mean that Baha'is are naive, that if someone's attacking you, that you don't call the police or anything like that. So as there are many writings about actually, no, we need to be wise and things like that. But this principle of not characterizing people that wrong you as enemies, that Abdul Baha is saying, don't just turn your cheek. Don't do, we do more. We actually try out and strive to be of service to that oppressor. And that's the highest standard. And that's how Abdul Baha lived his life. So this isn't a theoretical concept. He lived his life where people were torturing his family and his blessed father, and he would be of service to them and help them. And there's many stories about his 9 years living in Akka as a prisoner there as well, doing that. Okay, this is the positive part. Okay, so I promise we'd get here. In the Baha'i writings, I looked everywhere that I could find, and I found the 5 steps to stop fault finding and backbiting. So we have the answers here. Should I share them, or we just stop the presentation here? All right, I'll share them. Okay, I'll share them. Okay, there are five steps, okay? And they're very interesting, and they're very, very practical. Here is step number 1 if there's anything you take away from this, please none of the backbite bad things. Remember the good ones that we're sharing. The first one is to remember your own faults. That's step number 1. So if I'm about to start backbiting about somebody, the first thing I need to remember is, if the fire of self overcome you, remember your own faults and not the faults of my creatures. Inasmuch as every one of you knoweth his own self better than he knoweth others. So if I'm sitting there thinking, oh, so-and-so person is horrible, step number 1, hold on a second. Maybe the thing that I see in that person that I don't like is a thing about myself that I don't like. Or maybe, you know what? I may have characteristics that I need to focus on. Me dreaming about that other person's faults is not going to solve anything. So I first need to do that because I know myself better than I know that person. I don't know what struggles that person's going through. I don't know what life situation they're in, but I know my ones. And oh boy, am I a broken winged bird. I have plenty of things I need to do to heal, to fix myself spiritually. You know, I'm not perfect. So, and when I become perfect, then I might think about backbiting. But until then, I won't do it. So that's step number 1, is remember your own faults. And then there are 4 more steps. Step number 2, to be silent concerning the faults of others. Abdul Baha is so wise. He just said, just don't say anything. Be silent. If you see the faults of others, fine. All right, you shouldn't. But first, step 1, remember your own faults. Step 2, don't speak. Be silent concerning the faults of others. I think that's very, very wise. So, and then the third one is pray for them. So first, remember your own faults, be silent. And the third one is, Actually, if there is something that's disgusting about some other person that you just don't like, well, if you are who you think that you are, maybe you should pray for them, because you are not going to fix them. You know, you're not going to correct their faults. You're going to, you should pray that God assists them in their spiritual endeavor. The fourth one is through kindness to try and correct their faults, through kindness. So if this is a friend of yours or whatever it might be, rather than sitting there backbiting about them, and I think it may have been John who was mentioning, well, actually, this is very unfair because this person has no ability to be able to heal themselves. But find a kind way, and we'll dig deeper into this because this is very hard to do. But through kindness is to correct the faults of others. We'll double click on that one in a second. And the fifth one is to look at their good qualities. Abdu'l-Baha says to look always at the good and not at the bad. If a man has 10 good qualities and one bad one, to look at the 10 and forget the one. And if man has 10 bad qualities and one good one, to look at the one and forget the 10. Never to allow ourselves to speak one unkind word about another, even though that other be our enemy. And there are countless examples of how Abdu'l-Baha did this in his life. And being the centenary year of his passing, if it's okay with you, I want to share one story from Abdu'l-Baha's life of where he did this. When Abdu'l-Baha traveled to the West, he spent some 239 days or something like that in the United States. And during his travels in the United States, he was one of the places he spent some time and he loved was New York. And not for the reasons we all love New York, but he found some some real spiritual promise about the future of this city. And while he was there, he was giving many different talks. And there were newspaper articles written about Abdu'l-Baha. And people were writing this man of peace has come to the United States to share his message of peace and things like that. And at this time, and his name just escaped me. Apologies, I can get the reference later. But it's in this book about Abdu'l-Baha's time in New York. And this man who, his brother was the inventor of the modern day machine gun. And he himself was a warmonger. Like he was famous for planning wars and commercializing war. And his brother had actually developed a particular bomb that had killed thousands of people. And he was a real big advocate for war, this man. And he said, I want to book a meeting with this Abdu'l-Baha, and I want to meet with him and I want to have a debate with him. And I want people to be around and reporters to come, and I want to have a debate with this Abdu'l-Baha. And Abdu'l-Baha said, of course, yes, I'd love to have a conversation with this person. And this person sits there and gives this talk about war and how war is what fixes problems, it's how it makes your country strong and it makes you powerful. And he gives this intellectual conversation about why war is good. Abdu'l-Baha does not interrupt him. Abdu'l-Baha does not stop him and obviously say that what you're saying is completely ridiculous, because the man was like truly speaking nonsense, what he was saying. But Abdu'l-Baha listened and he listened and he listened. And as soon as Abdu'l-Baha got a chance to talk, the first thing that Abdu'l-Baha did was he talked about this man's good qualities. And he said, all of these wars that you have participated in, all of these things is a sign of your intellectual ability. Look at these inventions that you have made. And this man was taken aback. He could not believe that this was Abdu'l-Baha's response. And Abdu'l-Baha said, imagine that you were to put your mind, your brilliant mind, to peace. You would be the most famous person in the world. You will be remembered in history, and you will be like lauded amongst all the greats who have come after you if you were to use this very intelligence that you have and to promote peace and unity. And he also famously said that, and if peace doesn't work out, fine, you can always go back to war, but just you give peace a try. And, this man was really overcome by this, but this is such a good example of this man probably had 10 bad qualities and one good one. And Abdu'l-Baha didn't just he didn't just see it. He was looking for the good quality. He was listening to what he was saying. He said, actually, this person's very intelligent. You know, like, and he could have sat there and reprimanded him for the horrible deeds that person's done. But Abdu'l-Baha recognized everyone has a path, little by little, day by day, to improve. And he looked for that one good quality. And I don't think any of the people we interact with or people that we don't like have been responsible for thousands of murders. They might be people that are annoying or frustrating. So it's very easy to do it in the way that Abdu'l-Baha did. So I'm getting to the
Hudson Maxim.
Sorry?
Hudson Maxim, is it?
Yes, I believe so. That's right. Yeah. It's in a separate presentation I have about Abdu'l-Baha, but that's for another day. And so I mentioned that one of the things, step 4, was really hard, which is how do you kindly correct the faults, someone else's faults? Because, like if someone had really, imagine I had all these bad qualities and someone's like, Sana, you've got like really bad qualities. Let's go through them. You know, I might be very offended, or I might be upset, or I might struggle to hear, I might get defensive. So again, the beloved master Abdu'l-Baha had this, he had this to offer. And I've studied this many times, this particular passage, and the more I've studied it, haven't seen this as one message. Abdu'l-Baha is sharing a hierarchy of ideas, in my belief. This is just my view of this writing. And when I look at this, I think Abdu'l-Baha first gave us the highest standard and thought, if you can't make it, just go to the next one. If you can't make it, go to the next one. And you'll hear the tone change in Abdu'l-Baha's one passage. And he said, first thing you should do, if someone has upset you and you want to fix that bad quality of theirs, first, let not your heart be offended with anyone. That's the first thing you should do. And then you're like, but Abdu'l-Baha, it's so hard not to be offended. Okay, fine. Next sentence. If someone commits an error and wrong towards you, you must instantly forgive them. Fine, I get that you're offended, but then just forgive them. Okay, because you can only start to forgiveness if you have some problem. And then, but I can't forgive that person. I'm really struggling. Okay, fine. Do not complain of others then. Don't talk to other people about it. You know, and then you're like, oh, okay. And then that's really hard. Well, then refrain from reprimanding them, because that's not great. But if you still can't do that, if you still must, you're still bursting at the seams and you have to reprimand them, if you wish to give admonition or advice, let it be offered in such a way that it will not burden the bearer. It will not burden them. Turn all your thoughts towards bringing joy to hearts. And beware, lest you offend any heart. And so this is something that, if imagine the whole world lived by this, if somebody upset them or anything like that, again, don't be offended, fine. If you have to be offended, then just forgive them. All right, if you can't forgive them, don't complain to others about it. All right, then don't reprimand them. All right, if you have to say something, find a way to say it that doesn't burden them and it brings joy to their hearts.
Can you give an example of that?
Well, what do we think? That's great, Barry. So what do people think? How could you say something?
No, what I was asking was, can you give an example of that?
Yeah, so I was asking what others think. If anyone had an example, I mean, I could share one, but it'd be good to hear if others thought of an example of how you could bring joy to someone's heart.
Wow. By looking at their good quality and praise them.
Yeah, so one example exactly of that is there was these believers who wrote to Abdu'l-Baha, and they were saying, there is this man in our village and he lies all the time. He's just a liar. We don't like him. And we want you to write to him and tell him to stop lying. And Abdu'l-Baha writes a tablet to him and he starts it like this. He says, "O ye lover of the truth." That's how he starts the tablet to this man. And it brought joy to his heart. This warmonger is sitting there, and Abdu'l-Baha says, this is a sign of your intelligence. Now apply your intelligence to this. He brought joy to his heart. There are many examples of where you know, like Abdul Baha, like, I mean, there's one other, I mean, this is more about forgiveness, but it's the same sentiment. You know, after being a prisoner since he was age 10 or 9, Abdul Baha was finally released after 40 years and after his father passed away. And then he was finally a free man. And he decides to visit the West, and with, you know, the very few funds that were available to him, and he goes to Paris. And when he gets to Paris, he sees a man who he recognized, who was a prince of Nasruddin Shah. And this prince was in exile at the time. So Abdul Baha, now a free man, and this man whose family had tortured Abdul Baha's family their whole life, it was standing right in front of him, and everyone was like, wow, what's Abdul Baha going to say to him? You know, he finally faced now. Abdul Baha's free. He's the exile. What is he going to say? Abdul Baha walked up to him and said, everything that happened is in the past. Let's spend the day together. And Abdul Baha led him into his apartment, and they had tea together, and he welcomed him like a guest. He brought joy to his heart. Even that, and that person, do you think he wouldn't have known what he had done to Abdul Baha's life? And he spent the day with him. They spent the day together in Paris. And, you know, these are examples of how Abdul Baha also trusted that individual could recognize their own faults, and they will work on them, but through love and kindness and through service, that this will be overcome. And
Thank you.
yeah, so there are many, like there are countless examples, and I know I'm bringing lots of stories of Abdul Baha's life, but this is a year of spiritual potency for Baha'is, being the centenary of his passing. These are the 5 that I could find in the Baha'i writings. You might find more as you explore the writings, but these were the 5, and that's basically the crux of my presentation. So thank you so much for inviting me and giving me the time to share a topic that you know, I personally find very interesting, but I hope you got something out of as well.
Thank you, Sana. It was really a good one, but I think it's really difficult for a lot of us to, you know, follow all 5, you know, things. But it is hard. Even in religion like Christianity, we do say, I mean, Father Jagasodi will help, you know, say if it is wrong, that, you know, first find your own faults and be silent and pray for them. It's the same in the Christianity as well. But as a human, I don't know, I find it very difficult to follow all 5, you know, strategies and help someone. I don't know how others feel, but it's very hard in reality, I feel. Have you found that same way, anyone, or on a day-to-day life?
Marina, it's true that Sana, whatever you said today is very real, you know, the life situation. So it's very important to learn in detail, you know, how to handle it, which is important. People can know the whole thing, but might not be able to practically put it in action, which you helped us. So Jesus, when Jesus said, you know, if you think that there's a speck in your brother's eyes, look at the log in your eyes. You know, it's a very strong word. So it resonates with Christianity a lot. But I have a couple of questions. Just, you know, nothing to sort of say anything against what you said, because I went along with your speech peacefully. One is, can I, Marina, can I say?
Go ahead.
One, you can answer later, but one is, you said, you know, the 5-step. Second one is silent, which is good. But in a situation like human rights situations and what's happening in the world, take, you know, Martin Luther King's speech, you know, some of the things he said. If you are silent, then you are part of the people who are actually perpetrators of evil. So the voice of the people is very important. Voice of the one who is being oppressed, or the freedom is sort of plucked from them. You know, that's happening in Australia at the moment, even within the parliament, in building. You know, so people have to speak out and there is no way if they keep it in them, and the perpetrators will go doing it. That's one question. It's about justice. Um, um,
Yeah, did you want to share a bit about that, or the Baha'i perspective, or did you want to finish? Oh, you want to go through?
Just you can make a note if you like,
of course,
so that I don't have to speak too much.
Please.
I love the word they said, give peace a chance. That's absolutely something that can hit anyone and hit me as well. Give peace a chance before you take up war, which is absolutely a stunning one. The another one that I noted was don't put the burden on the person when you are trying to sort of help them to correct themselves. But when you start speaking, the burden will be there. Once they realize that they have done the wrong thing or said the wrong thing, it will be a big burden on them. But that will be a process. And then from there, you help them to find joy in helping them to unburden themselves and showing the hope that there is hope for the person, because there is all the good qualities he or she has, that you can go in another direction or give up the things that was not helpful to them and to others. A couple of things here.
Thank you so much. I mean, like I said at the beginning, because we don't have ourselves, we don't have, I believe everyone was referring to you as father, so you must be a priest, but we don't have that in the Baha'i faith. So anyone can obviously share their different perspectives that they have, but just from my, very minor, narrow perspective, yeah, I mean, on the silence part, that the context of that quote is very much on, if somebody offends you, try your best to be silent. And if you can't do that, then it's like, okay, how do you say it in a way that doesn't burden the bearer? But of matters of injustice or human rights or things like Baha'is are far from silent. We're very much encouraged to speak up against injustice in ways that promote unity, and that and in ways that encourage others to stand up and take action. So not only through words but through deeds. So we're very much encouraged to do both of those things. And there are a variety of ways that Baha'is are encouraged to do that, whether it's locally or whether it's depending on which way you're serving on a national level. But it's very wise what you shared as well, and I personally agree as well. Yeah.
Can I please just ask a question? I don't know if my question is going to be relevant to your lecture today, but I always have in mind about backbiting and children protection policy. The children protection policy, people who done something wrong with the children, for example, maybe they have some problem with mental medication issue. And with the backbiting, some people really don't understand and can't clarify the white and the black of the issues. Like, it's okay if they could understand Baha'is principle, but if they're not Baha'i people, then and they have a very different mindset, then they won't comprehend it. And then what I say is, as long as the people who kept quiet will not be considered as like conspiracy, just like conspiracy theory, when we see something obviously wrong but people just couldn't say anything, because if they say something they will be mistaken as a backbiting, and it is another aspect of the issue. So I appreciated your clarifications. Obviously, at a very high intellectual level and high level of communication, and for people with balance in mind, body, and spirit, and spiritual and religious. But if if people are not belong to religious study and they know nothing about child protection policy, and they let the man or the woman keep doing wrong thing to the children, and then finally get caught and get to the court case tribunal, and like had to pay compensation or go to jail for 100 years. Is that be good for that criminal?
I'm not sure I've understood the whole question, but I'll share one thing that I think might help the overarching thing. So, I mean, the Baha'i faith is extremely practical in the sense that there are many quotes on forgiveness that say, that we forgive everyone no matter what extreme case. But there are also quotes that, oh, if someone's harming you, you need to go to authorities and get help. This is not an extreme situation where you're a lawyer in court case and you can't say anything, because there are elements where justice needs to be delivered, and I think the examples that I was sharing were the day-to-day social examples that most of us would go through on a daily basis. But of course, if somebody is going to be harmed, or I mean, God forbid, a child in the situation that you're describing when it came to child protection, yeah, of course, disclosure of that is absolutely paramount and critical to the matter of safety and justice. But if I knew of a situation, I shouldn't go and tell the whole community, hey, hey, look what I learned about this person. But I definitely need to go to an authority or to somebody's, the child's parents, or whatever the right method is that needs to be followed. Of course, these are very practical things. These don't fall under the umbrella of backbiting, because the purpose of them is actually is for protection and for unity, to be able to share with authorities and things like that. So yeah, I hope that, does that kind of answer some part of what you were sharing? Yeah?
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Tracy,
Yeah.
you had a question?
Oh, just I appreciated you putting attention that to solve problems, or in the relationships, or whether you see something, to bring attention to how God sees them, the goodness, and to that we're trying to bring that out. So we're not just pruning a tree, we're actually fertilizing what's good to enable that to come out. That was the feeling that I had. So I very much appreciated getting us to put attention on this type of thing.
Another good analogy you've shared. Thank you. I was going to say something, Marina, you shared before about how difficult this is to do. There is no doubt in the mind of any Baha'i how difficult this is, and this is why there's so much emphasis in the Baha'i writings on this. And I think I mentioned at the beginning, and particularly in our society, in a place like Australia, and I don't know this is my reality. This is where I was born, so I don't have another reality to compare to. But I mean, it's very much in our culture and in our society that it's okay to backbite. And in fact, that's how, like I mentioned, the message, I guess, isn't that it's perfection or nothing. It's the way that we strive with everything spiritually is little by little, day by day, that we strive to get better at it, and we reflect on it daily. We bring ourselves to account and we go, oh, yeah, I backbited a lot today. Or, hey, why was I so frustrated in that meeting at work? You know what? I was just fault finding the whole time. I was just looking for problems. Okay, do they have any good qualities? Oh, maybe one. Let me think about it. And maybe that might take me days and days and days to come back and figure out. But I know that that's the path to unity. So whether I can walk it really slowly, but Zohar can walk it really fast and traverse that path, well, you know what? That's my capacity. It'll take me a long time maybe to achieve something like that. And it's daily reflection. It's talking to your friends about it. I mean, this is a hot conversation in my house. We talk about this all the time about fault finding and how easy it is to do. Like when we look at something, we're like, oh, am I just fault finding? And my wife would be like, well, how does she and then she's like, well, how do I say this without burdening you? And we're like, oh, this is like, it's so challenging, and But it's about striving, because we know that it's going to lead to a greater unity, and that's the idea. And I know I'll leave this earth extremely imperfect and not achieving any of these high standards, but I hope that I gave it a go.
And you said that kindly correct their other's fault, right? And we try to kindly correct, and they say, "What are you talking?" And they walk off. You know, so it does happen in real life, right? How do you then sort of get back to them and say, you know, this is what I'm really, so, you know, you can pray for them. I agree with you. You can pray for them, but you don't come to know that that prayers, they have changed or not. Okay, say you meet up one person at somewhere and you say, you know, you should be really not doing this. You know, it's a nice way if you not backbite others, but, you know, talk. And then they say, what are you talking to me? And they never come back to that spot or, you know, wherever we met them. And we keep praying for them. How do we know they're changed?
My instinct, and I'm sorry that I'm doing a lot of talking. Obviously, I'm interested in this topic. My instinct is to go to step one, which is to remember our own faults. So as soon as I'm thinking about, well, when are they going to improve? When are they going to get better? I might look at myself and say, oh boy, you know what? I'm a little bit like that too. Like, I mean, potentially, you know, whatever it might be. Or it's like, actually, maybe I need to focus on perfecting myself as well. And then it hopefully I can, and that's just my own personal, like I'll strive to, you know, consume myself with my own spiritual quest that I'm, you know, on, and not to try and busy myself with the faults of others. And it's hard. It's really hard because some people's faults can impact you totally. They can be frustrating, they can be harmful, they can be offensive. And we just strive to not, you know, to overcome those feelings. But yeah, is it difficult? Oh yeah, it's you know, and if it wasn't easy, it wouldn't be called a test. You know, this is one of those, yeah, these life challenges.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's just my perspective. Others may have much better insights. Apologies. Sorry, I'm just jumping.
No, it is a hard thing in life. I think I found it very difficult, and you know, you might be able to follow one step. You're going to do 5. No, it is really hard. I had this experience in life. But anyone else has another question, Siva?
If someone has done something bad to me, I mean, that's probably the most of the steps Sana was mentioning, that you remember your own fault, and also you forgive them and be silent. You don't talk about it. But if you can, the examples he gave, the Abdul Baha, how he dealt with it. But there is, in Tamil, there is a famous book called Tirukkural. And in that it says, inna செய்தாரை ஒருத்தல் அவர் நாண நன்னயம் செய்து விடல். The literal translation is that to punish someone who had done something bad to you is to do something good to them so that they feel themselves guilty or ashamed of themselves. That means if they do something bad to you, you do something good to them. This is exactly what you said Abha wanted us to do. But it is challenging, but how much we have spiritually grown, and how much we are willing to help others who are struggling to grow. That's what it is. So if you think that you are spiritually higher than the other person, then definitely you will show love and kindness and will try to help that person to grow. Whether by prayers, by your action, your thoughts, everything will be showing kindness to that person. But if this person is doing something bad to another person, that is a different thing. That's probably what Father Jagaswali was saying. And Abdul Baha said this in one of these talks that, for example, he said, if someone comes and attack you, I mean, he was showing to the person sitting next to him, if someone comes and attack you, I will defend you. But if someone comes and attack me, I will immediately forgive him. So if someone is doing harm to others, we cannot be silent, yes. But if they are doing to me, then yes, we had to forgive, we had to be silent. We don't talk about this to others. But the steps, he said that, but if I am deeply affected by it, uncontrollably sad, then going and confidentially talking to someone without actually naming, there's no harm, yes.
But then if that happens confidentially to a policeman per se, or anyone to a teacher or someone, immediately they'll ring the police. You know, someone, because that is the world that we are living now.
Yes.
We are talking about child abuse.
Yes.
The moment something happens, and even if you sort of confide it to a psychologist, they have to ring the police.
Oh, yeah.
Something happened. Yeah. So it's a sort of fine line of, heart to heart we can forgive, and say the missionary family who were the missionary lady escaped from in India, but I think, but I know the name of the place also. The father and the children were killed, but she escaped, but she forgave, and she went back to the same place. So, and then it was a big witness to the people there. How could this woman forgive us and come back here to serve us? Jesus said, if anyone does anything bad, do good to them, same thing. And then when you do that, you will heap live coals on their head. It's sort of a playing with the words, to say, it'll be, flabbergasted, what is this man or what is the woman coming and doing? And so personally, some of the things that we are talking about is possible, but in a society, there's a fine line how to handle justice at the same time show our virtues that we have learned from our religions. And so one more thing is that Good Samaritan story that Jesus said, the Samaritan was a despised enemy of the Jew, but he is the one who looked after another Jew that was hurt, not the two Jews who passed by. And that's why the bad Samaritan became the Good Samaritan. So again, the story of Good Samaritan is the same thing, Sana, that you're talking about, and we have been talking about, which is absolutely something that each and everyone has to practice, I think, in our lives, and encourage others to practice. That's how like kindness is contagious. So some of the things that we do is contagious, and we can change the world through our good love and action here.
I think that
Before you start, I think Marina, you wanted to go and give you.
Yeah, I got to leave. So thank you anyway for everything, and it was a good.
Thank you, Marina.
Really
Thank you,
appreciate
Marina.
that.
Thank you,
But
Marina.
we all
did a
have to
good
try
job.
to practice.
Marina has to go because she has to give medicine to her mother. So
I'll excuse
you
myself.
can
Thank
leave
you.
You are
anytime.
lovely, Mom.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyway, anyone else?
What I wanted to say is about justice, but some of the legal requirements of reporting that to the authorities, that is something that we have to abide by the law of the land. So that is different than forgiving and things like that. So that we have to abide by that.
Yeah.
Of course, yes. True. Anyone else? Colin?
Yeah, just expanding on that, is that there are sometimes you need therapy, or sometimes you need to talk to an authority. So there are I suppose the question to ask yourself is the person I'm talking to actually able to help in this situation, or am I just talking to someone which is not helping? And the other thought I had was, it was only quite a recent realization that whenever I talk negatively about someone in the media, a politician or a celebrity, or anyone else who's prominent at the moment, really, I'm forgetting that they're a human and that they are like any one of us. They've just found themselves in that position. We can't really blame individuals as much as we can blame the society and the structures which make people behave the way they do.
I think also constraining evil been happening.
We can't
We
hear
do
you.
redemptive restoration of people, you know, of really, okay, at one stage, they were doing terrible things, but there is still, God created them. There is something in them that we have to be part of the process of redeeming, bringing out, and to focus our attention on that, which is hard when you think about what someone's done. But, that's what, if we are to really bring about the true healing of humanity, that's the work that we need to do. And it's hard work, really hard work, but it's the work that we have to do if we are to really stop evil, because otherwise we have revenge, we have, it's easy to see what's wrong, but, to really work to find what's good and to hold it up to someone for them to see what's good inside them. Because a lot of people who do evil, they hate themselves. They only see bad within them. They're perpetrating what was done to them. So who can be the ones who can actually hold up the mirror of goodness to people until they can see it themselves? That's our real hard work. Anyway. Even when I was a naturopath, half the time it was to help people that I helped them to see that they could be healthy one day, even when they couldn't believe it themselves. And then we, step by step, they could get there, but I had to hold the faith. And that's part of holding the faith that God created everyone. God's inside of everyone. But some people have got it very crusted over.
That hope you had about their health would have brought joy to hearts and not burden them to say, actually, you're very unhealthy. Because that's how you could have started the conversation. They're like, well, I'm not coming back to her. But yeah, it's a great analogy again.
You see, there's only one extra, information that if you by any chance work closely with the police or with the authority of the court case and tribunal, you will see that on social media, they talk a lot about doping, informant, and you dope somebody in, like why is there a need to dope somebody in, or tip off information. So why is there a need to tip off some information? Because I don't think they got anything to do with backbiting, but there's a flow of communication, chain of communication between people and between the good people and the bad people. So why police need to use all these different words, especially like you say, you were like some of us were raised up in Australia, so we know the slangs or the idioms here, the word doping, especially at the school or at uni or at workplace. So why there's a need to dope somebody in, because then, and that not nothing to do with backbiting, so I don't want to step over the backbiting. It's a very large and, broad subject that's hard to pinpoint.
I think if this is something that is happening in the society and it is not good for the society, and if there are ways that we want to address it, people can try and address it in different ways. So one way is that the so-called tip-off or dobbing or whatever it is. But the one who is actually doing, the story in the Bible that all these men were trying to kill this woman with the stone because she is a prostitute. And she was running and towards Jesus, and Jesus said, if anyone who is not a sinner,
Without a sin.
he can throw the first stone, and then everyone dropped the stone, right? Now, that is what Sana in his presentation said, that first of all, you think of your own faults. So if we are informing an authority about a person who is doing something wrong, first of all, you think about yourself, whether you are doing anything wrong. But if that person, what he does is affecting the society, for the good of the society, if you have to inform, there's no harm, you should do it. But some people do this dobbing because they are envious of certain people. They don't like that particular person. So the moral of that particular individual, only God only knows. So I don't go and dob someone because I don't like him. So if I am keen on social justice, that everything that I see that is not done in the right way, then I should be informing the authorities, and I should conduct every time, all the time, in the right way. Yeah. Anyway, Ravi, do you have any question? Anyway, thank you, Bita and Ravi, for the chant, and also Jung. So next time, instead of music, you have to come and sing for us. If you have any questions or anything, any comments, we can entertain those. Otherwise, we can close it.
I just wanted to say that to have pure intention, I think is always very important. Whatever we do, we have a pure intention. And every day we pray to God, to Baha'u'llah, pray that our intention is right. Like whatever we do to somebody, we think that if somebody does that one to me, is that right? We always have to judge ourselves and pray to God that whatever we do, we see whatever we do should be, if somebody doing that to me, is that good? Shall I do it to somebody else? And backbiting is always, because everybody is doing it all the time, they don't even feel that they are backbiting. They think, oh, they are talking. But if we are there, if somebody is saying that, is that good? Like we have to always bring ourselves to account each day, as Baha'u'llah says, or every night. And little by little, every day, even now I'm listening, I said we have to practice and we have to be nice to ourselves also. Don't be harsh on ourselves and say, I can improve, I can be better, and bring elevated conversations and think of higher things rather than just talking about other people's fault and what they are doing is wrong, rather than talk about something to build, to be a better person, or to build the community, or bring ourselves to a higher station rather than going ourselves down. I feel that we pray to have a good intention every day.
Thank you.
And thank you, Sana. It was beautiful. I loved it. I loved the talk. Yeah.
Thank you, Sana.
Thank you, Sana.
Okay.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. I believe in what Joras, you just said something very important. For me, I believe that there are two angels, one on the right hand side of for anyone, and one on the left hand side. And if we do something good per day, the right hand side will make a credit for us. And if we do something bad, the angel on the left will say put a cross. So by the end of the year, they will see how many good things you done and how many bad things that we done. You know, like we done that in theory.
I
That's
just
only in theory.
Okay then. So we will close the meeting, and thank you, Sana, and
Pleasure. Thank you.
Sana.
thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Very much.
Thank you, Mr. Perry.
Thank you, everyone. That was lovely.
Everyone.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Lovely to see
Bye.
you all, everyone. See you next week.
Okay. Yeah. Good night.
Take care. Stay safe. Okay.